For those who are joining us on Zoom, if you could just give me a sign that you can hear me clearly. My name is Winston. I lead the admissions here at Asia School of Business, or ASB for short. Thank you, Gabriel, for the thumbs up. Thank you for taking time on an early Saturday morning or late Friday evening for joining us for this very special masterclass where we have the privilege and honor of having our President, CEO, and Dean to give us a lecture. And a very, very important topic, ask the humans versus the bots. They're coming after our jobs. Before we start, just a very, very quick run through about the background of our school. We're very young at this school. We started 2015. So Bank Negara founded the school together with MIT Sloan School of Management collaborations. So we have a very strong collaboration with MIT Sloan School of Management. Many of our courses are taught by MIT professors flying down to Kuala Lumpur. And our students would actually go up to MIT for the summer immersion, or in this case, next year onwards, it will be a spring immersion. Now, some of you may question, why does a central bank, Bank Negara, want to run a school? Because it is a social mission by the central bank. We are trying to create transformative and principled leaders here. We're inviting people who feel they're ordinary to join us so that we can empower you, equip you, and prepare you for the future. Right? We can change you and transform you so that you become the transformative leaders that we need to lead us out of the wicked problems that the world is facing. Right? It sounds like this organization is like SHIELD. Right? Now, of course, many of you would already know Professor Sanjay Sarma. But just to a quick run through of some of the highlights of his very long list of accolades. Before he joined us as Dean, Professor Sanjay was a Vice President of Open Learning at MIT. If you have taken MIT X courses, you've taken any of the open learning courses, you know he is a big push, he's a big proponent of open learning. You would thank him for it. However, you also love to hate him every time you go through a toll gate and some money is automatically deducted from you to the RFID system. Now, that's Mr. RFID himself. Right, he and his team was behind the invention of the software that empowers money being automatically deducted from us. But I speak too much. Let me welcome Director Nick Fury himself, Professor Sanjay.
By the way, you notice I'm uniform. Can you hear
Can you hear me now?
Can you
Can you folks thumbs up or something?
Yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
So I'll take a step back.
How
How many neurons does a human being have?
A
A
worm,
worm has 300.
It's more
It's more than 300.
How many?
How many?
Okay,
Okay, how many neurons does a cat have?
I'll tell you.
250 million neurons.
How many
How many do you think a dog has? It's a good way to see if you're cat lovers or dog lovers. 540 million. How many do you think a human has? Yeah, it's 86 billion. So somewhere between 540 million and 86 billion, all the amazing and crazy and stupid things that human beings do emerges, right?
So we
So we figured this out.
We
We figured out what neurons were about 100 years ago.
And
about 50, 60 years ago, we knew we had about 100 billion neurons, and now we've downgraded a little bit with more accurate counts to about 86 billion. But how old do you think AI is with that history? Modern artificial intelligence. 1940. It was in 1940, yeah, it's not new. It's not new. It's taken 80 years to become an overnight success. Right. It was in 1940 because computers were emerging. We knew how neurons worked, and the first thought started emerging that perhaps we could replicate neurons inside a computer. And there were two of them actually, Pitt and McCullough, two researchers, and they were at the University of Chicago, and actually they moved to MIT, my home institution where I work as well. And that's how modern AI started. And ladies and gentlemen, it completely failed. In other words, it started, but didn't go anywhere. A lot of hype, a lot of hope, nothing happened. Because they could do a little bit of gimmicky stuff, but they could not create intelligence. That's because we didn't, researchers didn't know what human intelligence really was. Forget AI. But the computer could only replicate like 10 neurons, 20, not 86 billion. Right? So by the 80s, 70s, lots of hype. MIT was actually partly responsible for it. We began to realize that it's not there, not going to happen. Just don't have the power of the human brain. The human brain is exceptional. It is immense, and we can't do it. And so AI went into a period of depression called the AI winter. I used to work in AI, and I stopped telling people I work in AI. But what do you do? I work in computation, robotics, because it was a stigma. You didn't want to be associated with AI. What happened was, meanwhile, there were breakthroughs happening quietly. The reason I say this is, it's not something new, it's not a gimmick, it's not a fad. It took 80 years, right? So now my concern, which I'll come to, is not like sudden. It's 30-something years older than me, right? Or 25 years older than me. So what happened was, in the 2000s, a little gaming company, gaming hardware company, started taking off. And it had to do with computer graphics, shooter games, over-the-shoulder shooter games. You sort of, you're going through a building, you shoot someone, they fall down, all that computer graphics. Computers weren't designed for it. You need a particular chip to do it. Those are called graphic processing units, GPUs, and the company was called NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, meanwhile, was sort of bustling along, feeding all the teenage kids that you know, all the kids that you'd be like, don't do that, it's bad for you. Go study. They were feeding this beast called NVIDIA. And in 2006, a guy by the name of Kumar Chiplala and his co-authors, they took AI, which had been floundering, and they said, maybe if we can use these chips, which parallelize computing and can do massive amounts of basic math for computer graphics, every building, every little pixel, maybe we can accelerate. And it worked. So in 2006 is when the second wave of AI really began. Because suddenly we got numbers. Another coincidence also occurred. The coincidence was the internet. So the way AI works
When you
When you write a computer program, you have to be very deterministic. For
example,
example, if I'm a robot and if you want to write a computer program
to pick
to pick up Rabin's coffee cup there, just imagine how much programming it takes.
Right? You
Right? You got to tell me, walk four steps up, turn left, right? Three steps, turn right, lower hand. Okay?
Look
for cup, look for handle. Is it full? Because if it's full, I pick it up differently. How much programming it takes? AI is different. AI teaches with examples. You basically grab the robot arm, you take it to the cup, you make it grip it, and you lift it up. And then you let it practice. It'll spill it. That's a robotic sense. But in the computational sense, that's what AI does. It needs thousands and thousands of examples. It learns from that. So two things happen. One is because of GPUs, we could go really fast. The second thing that happened was because of the internet, lots of examples emerged. Because what is the internet if not thousands of people saying, here's a picture of my dog? That's all the internet really is, right? I'm being sarcastic. But the internet is a great place for examples. So GPUs and these massive databases of pictures of dogs and pictures of cats that you can train on and other things came together and the boom started. So that's the second wave. Okay? The breakthrough paper came in 2011 by a guy called Alex Stutzkaiwer. Very creatively, he called it AlexNet. And AlexNet started performing spectacularly. People were like, oh my God. After 70 years, now suddenly this beast has come to life. This is real. That's a second wave. But you weren't hearing about it, were you? You didn't hear about AI. There wasn't press. People weren't running around with their hair on fire saying, oh my God, AI, right? Because that second wave was mostly for industrial stuff. It's the stuff that goes into Siri or Shazam. How many of you use Shazam? Anyone? Yeah? Shazam is how you recognize songs, right? Shazam. Or face recognition. Or document scanning. That's sort of where it went. Sort of behind the scenes. Workhorse. Not in your face. You weren't really excited about it. Yeah, it's happening. Then the third wave landed. The third wave started with a paper written in April, I think, of 2017. Ashish Vaswani et al. Like 8 authors. Vaswani et al. Google. And what they had figured out was how to take these AI programs and not learn from images of dogs and cats, but to learn from language. There was a little twist. The title of that paper was Attention is All You Need. So I won't explain how it works, but the summary is, now this, how many of you have seen Lord of the Rings? Come on, you all have, right? The eye of Sauron, the AI, suddenly figured out how to read corpuses of text and figure out how people write, read, and understand. And that is called large language models. LLMs. And initially, I was involved in that sort of vaguely working with it in the 2001 time, 2021 time frame. Initially, I was like, big deal, It's like, when you type on your phone, it suggests the next word, right? And the next word, predictive typing. That's all that is. But no. In 2022, some of us realized that this little predictive typer thing could write the next word, the next paragraph, the next page, and go on and still made sense. And we were, this happened, I remember April 2021, March 2021. No, 2022, I'm sorry. I was in New Jersey airport talking to one of my students, a German guy, Thomas, and saying, Thomas, this is crazy. This thing's able to do things it's not supposed to do. Right? We were asking it questions about things that didn't occur. For example, the particular question we asked it was, if you go to a store in Boston versus a store in Texas, grocery store. A retailer asked us this question. You want to buy Coca-Cola, and you can't find the Coca-Cola. What will the person substitute it with? Think about it. What a profound question. It's something called a counterfactual. Means it's not a fact. I'm asking you to speculate. And it got it right. It's it in Boston. If you can't buy Coca-Cola, you'll buy a Pepsi. You know what they buy in Texas, by the way? Anyone been to Texas? Dr. Pepper, root beer. It's a terrible drink. Don't even try it. But in Texas, it's popular. But it got it. And I remember in April 2022 in New Jersey, in Newark Airport, going, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Right? Something had shifted. Was not overnight. But that time, it had taken 80 years. And this 80-year-old beast suddenly lumbered into like Frankenstein intelligence. Right? And this is what we're confronting today. 2022 December, ChatGPT came out. All ChatGPT is GPT with your ability to chat with it. That's why you saw it. That's why we all woke up to it, because I've been working on it some time. But you saw it. And you looked at a mirror. And you saw a pretty good facsimile of you looking back from the mirror. And that was the moment. I think the world sort of woke up. Initially it was a gimmick. What I'm here to tell you is the bots are coming. Okay? Now, I'll stop there and see if you have any questions. Then we'll go into the bots and the jobs of the future. Any questions? When is the first time any of you used ChatGPT? Soon as it came out. How many of you have never used ChatGPT? Yeah, all of you use ChatGPT. Have you used any other program like Anthropic, Meta, Llama, anything else? There's a whole slew of them. Right? Okay. Let's move on. I want you to think about your last few weeks, last day. What are the interactions you've had with people, with organizations? You're here. You're hearing me speak. You probably had breakfast or a coffee somewhere, right? Some of you may have flown. You may have checked into a hotel. You may have purchased a ticket. You may have canceled a ticket, changed a ticket, right? You may have interacted with your bank. You may have spoken to customer service. What are all the interactions that involved human beings? Just think about it. What I'm going to tell you is, unfortunately, and this is a sort of shocking situation, pretty much every one of those interactions can be either fully or significantly replaced by AI. Like checking into a hotel. What do you do when you check into a hotel? They already have all your details. They just have to get your passport details and a room number. Do you enjoy standing in line? Right? You should be able to put your passport. The key should go to your phone. That's it. And your room number should flash there. Right? Put your phone, your passport in together. Boom. NFC done. Right? If you have questions, for example, what time will breakfast open? Or I hurt my ankle and I want a room on the lower floor. LLMs can do that pretty well, folks. Right? And what time will breakfast open? Generally 7 a.m., but tomorrow, sir, we have some construction. Apologies. 7:30 a.m. LLMs can do that very well. If you think about it, how many of you went to Ben's, the coffee shop downstairs, before coming here? I know Damien was there. Anyone else? There are a couple of robots. Have you seen those? They're very cute. They deliver food. Those robots are mute. Yeah, they speak, but they make cute sounds, and then come up with, they're called bussing robots. They bring the food, but you can't talk to them. You can't say it's the wrong order. It can't take your order. It can't say to you, listen, I know you ordered pepperoni. Of course, I hope you didn't have pepperoni pizza this morning, but I know you don't order, you ordered pepperoni pizza, but out of pepperoni. Would you like chicken satay on the pizza instead? It can't do that. The fact of the matter is, right now, it could. I'm just telling you. It could. It could take your order. It could negotiate your order.
It
already delivers your food. It could take your payment. It can tell you your credit card's been declined. Right? It can say, do you want to pay through your bank? It can flash a QR code. All the stuff that a waiter does is about to go into what LLMs can do. And by the way, this is just the beginning. Because LLMs are just making friends with robots. This is one example. But there are more profound examples coming. The impact on jobs is pretty spectacular, unfortunately. Right? We talk about climate change and its impact on society. We should talk about tech change and its impact on society. Now, I'm not here to terrify you. I did talk the other day and people said, oh my God, that's terrifying. It is, unfortunately. It's the truth. But when you're faced with something like that, you can sit back and sort of wait for it to come, and you can take charge. I think unfortunately in AI with robotics automation, after waiting 80 years, it's here, and we have to take charge. Right? Now that means many things. It means we have to fix our education system. Our education system is inherited from our colonial masters. They needed robots, clerks, to run the empire, which we gladly complied with. Right? Even today, even in the West, you have recitations. You memorize so that the barons could do the smart things, and the people could just be the machines. Well, the real robots just showed up, folks. So we've got to craft training human beings to be creative, critical thinking, do the things that the robots cannot do. Right? Those poor employees in the restaurant, many of them from India and Pakistan, they're going to lose their jobs. Ali or Farouk or Shamsher, they're going to lose their jobs when this happens. They earn money and send it home. Right? They are such intelligent people. One of them came up to me the other day and said, I have a startup idea. I was blown away. Right? He's working. He's already coded up using with his friends a startup idea. He doesn't have a chance to do anything with it. It's just so good. It's a coincidence he's at ASB. And he came and asked me if he could do something with it. There is these 86 billion neurons count for something. And we've lived in a sort of a reductionist approach where we've reduced people to robots. We shouldn't be surprised when the robots take their jobs. So we have to fundamentally fix our education system. That's a fundamental thing. Our education system is pretty badly broken. This is what I've worked on for 15 years, written books about it, etc. Societally, what's going to happen is, see, companies in our capitalist system, now I'm a capitalist, so this is not a critique of capitalism. If one company automates jobs, the other company is forced to. There's no two ways about it, because that's how we judge them in the stock market. So the race is about to begin. By the way, companies will struggle, just for the record, because this is such an existential transformation, they don't know where to begin. Right? So they don't know where to start. There's going to be a talent shortage, because decision-making, courage, understanding technology, understanding this technology, understanding other technologies, sustainability, etc., making the hard decisions, reshaping, risk-taking. By the way, that's what ASB does. We want to create transformative leaders, but not transformative just in the sense of transforming. We want to transform the individual themselves to become transformative. That's what we do. Principled, obviously, because AI also begins to knock on the doors of some pretty existential questions in terms of what human principles are. Right? So that's what we do. We want our students to graduate from here and say, I can go to a company and I can tell you how in this race you can upgrade yourself. But societally, we want our graduates to also think about what it means to jobs, what it means to income, what it means to society, what it means to work, live, what is fun, right? I want to take a step back. Winston mentioned my work in RFID. So I did this RFID stuff 20 years ago.
And now it's everywhere, right?
Billions and billions of tags every year. Think of the toll roads. Earlier, when you came to a toll road, if you remember, some of you are probably too young to remember, but when you come to a toll road, there was a line, you stopped, you paid someone, and there's a toll taker. It was an irritant. It was friction. The good thing about the friction is it's a revenue redistribution mechanism. Friction is how society is one way in which society redistributes income. What did I do? What did we do? Our technology replaced all that with automation. It was great for everyone. Friction went down. But those people lost their jobs. Right? The toll takers lost their jobs. It's not a huge market segment.
They found other jobs. It worked out, I think, I hope. I've never checked, frankly, right? But it hasn't been like a massive impact on society. But the reduction of friction with automation removes revenue or income distribution mechanisms. Now, with any new technology, this happens. Productivity goes up. Initially, jobs go down. Over time, new jobs are created. So while I gave you a daunting sort of picture, new jobs will be created. There's another case study of this. Automatic teller machines, ATMs. Before ATMs, everyone had to go to the bank, right, and talk to a teller to get money. Most tellers were high school graduates. And banks operated with ledgers, right? And they had at best a calculator. And they would subtract from the ledger how much you had and do a calculation, write it down, and then give you the money. Automation happened and then ATMs happened. So the immediate thought was bank tellers' jobs would go away. What do you think happened? Did they go away or go up or down? Anyone on Zoom? Jules, you're on both ends. What do you think? Jobs went up? ATM jobs went up or went down? How many in favor of up? How many in favor of down? Okay, let me tell you the facts. So ATMs appeared in the mid-60s. There were 300,000 tellers in America. By the late 70s, ATMs have penetrated America very significantly. There were 600,000 tellers. You might say, why? How did that happen? The reason is, as I said, friction was removed, right? Banks could operate without these people, but banks could do more things, like sell mortgages, sell CDs, current deposits, right? Fixed deposits, different instruments, tell you how to manage your portfolio, maybe even give you pension advice, insurance advice, right? Depending on which bank you go to, they do all of that. So actually, what happened was that the basic teller job went away, but more and more tellers were college graduates. And they were doing something higher up in the cognitive stack. So by 1980, 85, there were 600,000 teller jobs. By the way, today teller jobs are going back down because banking is going to the internet and AI is going to make a huge difference, right? But generally, what labor economists say is when a new technology comes along, jobs will initially go down, but then they start going up. With ATMs, it happened pretty slowly. It took 15 years because they're physical things. You've got to install them. Here, it's happening very fast. Yep. Aha. The host would like you to unmute. What is that? Huh? Oh, technical issue. Not me, right? Okay. just hit unmute. There you go. Can you hear us? Anyone? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Not sure what happened there. So the thing
about AI is,
I think there's a huge opportunity for companies, for graduates of ASB to help companies transform. But there's a bigger societal need for people like our graduates to go out and do other things with AI that actually create jobs. And that is entrepreneurship, right? New opportunities opened up by AI. Yes, some of the tedious jobs, the robots, will take away the jobs that were really designed for robots. But there'll be new productivity apps. There'll be new ways to design vacations. There'll be new ways to enjoy life. There'll be new ways to consume better food, to live healthier lives. There'll be new apps. You'll have apps, this is already happening, with which you can examine your, take a picture of your food and it'll say, too much fat for you, buddy, lay off, right? All this is going to happen. I need that, by the way, right? All this is going to happen. So there's also a huge productivity boom coming. So we need soldiers for this new revolution. So companies need them. Society needs them. What we can't have, unfortunately, is folks who sit back and let the future come to them. And unfortunately, a lot of people are stuck in that. What's a 70-year-old granddad who's, lost, his pension because of the 2008 crash? What's he going to do? He's not going to go learn AI, right? So a lot of people will be victims. So it's also, I think, a moral responsibility to do what happened with ATMs and to create new job opportunities. So it's not just companies, it's also entrepreneurship. So these are the two broad areas that I believe will be needed and where ASB is firmly sort of going into. One thing I just want to say in addition to all this is that I think this is going to have massive impact on whole countries, right? For example, the Philippines. The Philippines has 2 or 3 major industries, right? Georgia from the Philippines. And I was on CNN in the Philippines talking about one of them, which is call centers. That's a big category that's going to go away, right? It's a huge revenue source. That's going to be automated. One person will be able to do 10 people's jobs because the chatbot is so smart now. It'll do the job, right? Philippines actually has a double whammy, unfortunately, and I'm working with some, we're working with some folks in the Philippines to think it through, including in shipping. By the way, shipping, a ship can operate with 0 people on board. It's much easier to do autonomous shipping than autonomous cars. Did you know that? Makes sense, right? Ships are easy to automate. There's not so many things to collide with. Actually, the things that ships do, it's easier for an automated system to do. By the way, planes have been automated for 30 years, called autopilot. Right? So Philippines also provides a lot of the able-bodied workers for shipping. That's another industry that's going to vanish. So I was talking to the folks in the Philippines, and I'm in touch with a shipping company there as well. So what's the opportunity? The opportunity for the Philippines is to lean in. Don't be a victim. Become the thought leader in call centers using AI, rather than just being a victim of call centers vanishing. Look at the risks, look at the rewards, right? Maybe the AI systems need to be trained. Maybe that's where you go. You got to lean in. So in addition to 2 job categories I listed, one being the people who go transform companies, the second being entrepreneurs who create the new economy, the AI economy. There's a third category of leadership the world will need, which is what I call international thought leadership, right? People who go in and help countries pivot and navigate a very difficult future. And then you add to that climate change, sustainability, et cetera. So we're in for quite a ride. The bots didn't show up yesterday. the bots took 80 years to get ready. Right? It's not a gimmick. It's not some technology that's popped up and we're all excited about and we're jumping around. Right? There's actually, that's not the only technology, just for the record. It's AI, it's robotics. I'll tell you a little about robotics in a minute. It's augmented reality, AR. All these have now finally, after decades, started reaching maturity. And the world will be reshaped by them, right? And in all of those, there'll be three big categories. One is transforming companies. The other is creating new enterprises. And the third is transforming countries. Right? And we will all be part of it. I want to now spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about the other technologies. Let's start with robotics. Do you know when the first robot was conceived? I think in Baghdad. I've got the name of this scientist. Probably 1,000 years ago. The concept shows up even today. Amazon has something called Mechanical Turk. Have you heard of Mechanical Turk on Amazon? Some of you? Anyway, if you check it out, you'll see it. Robots have been thought of for about 1,000 years, perhaps more, as far as we can tell. Robots were limited because they couldn't learn very much. You had to program them in a deterministic way, like I just showed you with Rabin. With AI now, robots are beginning to learn. So that's another revolution that's going to land. By the way, the AI revolution has another feature. Whereas most technologies take away blue-collar jobs first. Okay, I'll get that question in a second. Blue-collar jobs first, right? And then white-collar jobs. AI is going to go the other way. It's going to take white-collar jobs first, and then blue-collar jobs, right? Mid-white-collar. Give an example. Who's going to lose their job first, the doctor or the nurse? And I'll pair it with another question. Who's going to lose their job first, the lawyer or the paralegal assistant? So doctor or nurse, who's more likely to be pushed out by AI? Yeah, yeah. Because the nurse does something AI can't do yet, right? In legal, it's a little bit more iffy. The paralegal's job is actually quite very much at risk. One of the things about AI today is most of our AI today is boil the ocean. It does everything. You ask ChatGPT from everything from, last year's UEFA champion to, translate from Tagalog to Tagalog to Bahasa Melayu. It'll do everything. But the next wave of AI is going to be vertical, legal, right? And that's just beginning to happen. So it's going to take a lot of white-collar jobs, not blue-collar. AI is going to hit, unfortunately, women more than men. Do you know why? Yeah. Men do more manual jobs. Women do more intellectual jobs. So it's going to hit women more. This is all widely reported, widely studied. So robots. Men do manual jobs, right? And we don't have robots that can do that yet. That's beginning to happen. Because as I said, robots had to be deterministically programmed. And now robots are beginning to learn. There are frightening videos of a robot watching YouTube videos of people untying complex knots like, sailing knots and figuring out how to untie them itself. It's pretty scary, actually, right? So when that happens, robots will hit a new plateau. They're stuck in an old plateau right now. They'll start hitting a new plateau. And then the physical manual jobs will be at risk. Already robots, if you think of an autonomous car or an autonomous ship or autopilot on planes, that's basically a robot, right? The robot thing I described at Ben's cafeteria, that's a robot. Right? Now, robots are being thought of for doing warehouse operations, logistics robots, forklifts that are automated. Forklifts, you can say, hey, get that pallet and move it there. It does a natural language processing. It might ask you, which pallet, the one on top or the one below? No, the one below. And then it'll do the reasoning, take the one on top, put it down, pull the one below, take the one that it's put down, move it back, take the one below, and you can point and say there. And it goes there. By the way, this is a research project I'm doing right now in Singapore. And then it'll say to you, over there? No, 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 right next to the pallet over there. Okay, boom, done. Right? And the next time it's learned from you. So robots are coming. And then men who will be somewhat protected, not completely, because a lot of white-collar men will be affected by this. Blue-collar jobs are at risk. Right? There's something called Moravec's paradox. What it says is, things that are easy for humans to do are hard for robots to do. Things that are hard for humans to do are actually easy for robots to do. My wife was saying the other day, because actually I do the dishes, she's saying, it's very hard for a robot to do that. Because that's actually easy for me to do. It's hard for a robot to do. Picking up dishes from a dishwasher. Right? But that's coming as robots automate. Right? So robots is a whole new space coming. Not there yet, but some scary things happening as robots and AI mix. Another technology coming is augmented reality. How many of you have used an augmented reality system? Okay, give me examples. George. Oculus. What else? Anyone? Rafa. Apple Vision Pro. You've used one?
No.
Yeah, I actually have one. I love it. Anyone else?
Google Maps also they have automated.
Exactly. That's the point. Google Maps. I'm going to come back to the question there because it's sort of a nice way to wrap it in. Google Maps is a form of augmented reality. You're seeing reality through a new lens. Waze is a form of augmented reality. When we think of augmented reality, we think, looking through like a Vision Pro or an Oculus. But this is a form of augmented reality. When I see Waze, I see a map. And I see traffic that I can't really physically see, but it tells me where the traffic is. It's augmenting my reality. Right? So augmented reality is actually surprisingly powerful, and you've been using it, you just don't know it. I have an Apple Watch. If I'm driving, it taps, I get a little vibrate from Maps to say, look at your maps because a turn's coming up. That's augmented reality. A lot of wearables do sort of a version of augmentation of reality. Right? How old do you think augmented reality is, by the way? You know my theme. How old do you think it is? Huh? 30 years? 35, going once, going twice. Any takers for 35? 40 years? 40? One for 40? 45? 50? Going once, going twice? That's a different kind of augmentation, all right, of reality. He said the first one someone smoked a joint. Yes, that's a different kind of augmentation. Now I'm talking about constructive augmentation. Augmented reality is 80 years old as well. Actually more, maybe 100 years old. Yeah. Actually it's more than 80, maybe 100 years old. Let me explain. There is an industry, an entire industry that has been using augmented reality for 80 years and would not be commercially viable today were it not for augmented reality. Can you name that industry? I'm not talking about movies or entertainment. Can you name that industry? I'll tell you, and then you'll say, really? Right track, but not, huh? Not space. Space is recent, Sputnik. No. Right track. Well, yeah, gaming is a sum of, it's like it's smoking a joint. It's a different thing. Fantastic. Yep. Airplanes. During World War II, the Japanese and the Germans and the Americans and the British could all produce planes at the same rate. Only the Allied countries could produce pilots at the same rate because there was an American company called the Link Company which made flight simulators. So you could do most of your training on the ground. It's too expensive to train up in the sky. You can't take a novice to the sky. You want to give them some sense. and you sat on this little, like in America, if you in the South, you have these bull riding. It's a little toy thing. It tries to toss you off, and there are pillows all around so you don't hurt yourself. That technology was used to train people to fly. How do you take off, right? How do you turn, right? All that stuff. And so augmented reality is also very old. And now with things like the Oculus and the Vision Pro, and with all these other things, it's coming to the fore. Coming back to the AI as evolving respect to learning at an online course, I'm going to come to that. Essentially what's going to happen to us, and then there's sustainability, right? All the things we'll have to learn to deal with climate change. It means things like how do we deal with flooding? How do we deal with extreme weather, et cetera, et cetera? How do we produce green hydrogen, which is a whole big thing now? How do we, maybe you have to go nuclear. How do we train people to do nuclear safety? There are nuclear plants everywhere. Maybe we'll have to suck CO2 out of the air. These are called direct air carbon capture plants. How do we train people to do that? How do we manage all this? How do we optimize it? What happens it's stormy if it's cloudy and there's no sunlight and we have no power? That means you need to put batteries on the grid. How do you manage that? Project management. It's a game-changing world we're coming to. And we're going to do all that with augmented reality, AI bots helping us, right? Robots helping us. It's a whole new world we're entering. And these are not new. It took 80 years for all these crises to play out as we are today. And COVID sort of forced everyone, because everyone went digital, and that's one of the reasons AI is taking off, because during COVID we all went digital, right? Now we do calls on Zoom, and you have read.ai or something, monitoring, and it's learning. So this is a convergence of many, many historic threads occurring right now. And the solution to all that is learning, right? And the learning has to be human. It can't be bot learning. It's got to be, we've got to learn to do the things that bots can't do. Because if you learn the things that bots can do, you're just setting yourself up to lose your job, right? Think of the words in the English language for being really good. Exceptional means doing something that is not the norm. It's outside the box. Outside the box. It's outside the box. That person is outstanding. Not instanding, outstanding, right? X is distinguished, not indistinguishable, distinguished. We know in our language that what makes humans really great is to not just do the stuff in the middle, but explore the boundaries. The middle will be occupied by robots. And so we have to come up with an education system, Giovanni, that helps people do that. And that's actually what we're launching here as well. We're launching at ASB, and I did that at MIT about 10 years ago, something called Agile Continuous Education, ACE. And one of the things we're working on is having AI help people, not by teaching them memorizing things, but being a counterparty to a repartee, a discussion, trying different things out, right? So that like a flight simulator, they become ace pilots in this world rather than merely robots, right? So AI is going to play a huge role. AI tutors, if you haven't seen Sal Khan's video on this, Khan Academy, MIT guy, by the way, I know him very well, you'll see it, where he's teaching his son using GPT 4.0, right? All this is in the offing. So this is a magnificent time. It's a terrifying time. The transformed will transform, but a transformation is coming. And really the choice is where you want to be in that. Which side of that equation you want to be in, right? ASB is small, we're agile, and we're just totally pivoting that. We've actually very naturally in that direction, because a lot of our professors are actually engineers, or they're in the AI space, or the tech space, or the innovation space, right? Or the human space. That's basically what we do. And now we're going all in, with our MIT roots, we're going to go all in on that. So I'll stop there. Any other questions? Happy to take them. It's 10:20. We have 10 minutes for a discussion. If you disagree with something, that's cool too, because you're not being a robot. Okay, let's start from there.
Prof,
Robots don't disagree, by the way.
Yep. Will AI get regulated soon?
Yes, it will be. First badly, and then eventually we'll get it right. The Europeans have already passed a AI law. It was enacted in January of this year. It's a risk-based regulation. Some countries are just banning AI, which is stupid. It's like banning the rain. It's going to rain when it's going to rain. You can't ban it. Some countries are doing nothing about it, which is very American, which is hoping that big companies with very intelligent people like Elon Musk will figure it out, which they won't. So we're in for some craziness for the next 5 years. But I think eventually sense will prevail. But it'll be a smorgasbord of regulations. Regulation here this way, regulation there that way. Some countries will regulate for other reasons. Religious reasons, dogma, right? Can you tell ChatGPT not to say certain things, right? Can you tell ChatGPT not to say that the leader in your country is maybe corrupt? You can't, right? Some countries, Turkmenistan might come down on that. North Korea might come down on that. So it's going to be a little bit of a mess while we figure out the new reality. Another thing that's happening, what is truth is going to change. Very soon it'll be a matter of if ChatGPT says it, it must be true. 2 + 2 = 5, right? So we also have to grapple with that. This is why the outstanding, the exceptional, the out-of-the-box thinker, the distinguished thinkers are so essential. Actually, hold on, Rafa, and then I'll come to you. Yeah.
This is the question I have then, because what do we do about hallucinating AI?
It's not a big deal. I think it's overrated. Let me explain. I've used AI a lot. Maybe 5% of the time it hallucinates, and I can tell. Here's a. Okay, let me. Yeah, do you want me to explain? Go ahead.
Well, it basically thinks up things that are not there. Like you're searching for a research paper and gives you the perfect reference paper or whatever, and then you actually look for that paper. It doesn't exist.
So let me actually flesh that out. So there's an article in the New York Times about a year ago. This is a real story. There's a legal brief filed in a legal case in an American court. The brief it was beautifully written, and it had references to cases. You know, Brown versus Kellis, 1974. Turns out it was all completely made up. It looked perfect. It was completely made up. So that is what is referred to as hallucination. I think the word is it's a misnomer. It's not hallucinating. Let me explain. It's just a predictive typer. It's just typing the next word. Hallucination is giving it more sense than it deserves, because it wasn't talking sense to begin with. Right? It's not like something that's a human being, like someone having dementia or something. It's not. It's just a predictive typer. But here's the crazy thing. It wasn't even supposed to do all this, because 80–90% of the time it gets it right. I thought it would get it right 5% of the time, maybe 2% of the time. So without even trying, we're getting 80% of the right 80% of the time. Now that people have discovered, this is only a year old. They're like, oh my God, it's making mistakes 15–20% of the time. Let me control it. So you're going to see that go down. Point number one. Point number two, thank God it hallucinates. Otherwise, you're all out of work. Thank God it makes mistakes, right? So I think hallucination is going to go down. And a lot of people are pinning their hopes on that being the savior. Don't. It's going to reason. It's going to get its knowledge right. Its natural language processing is amazing. And the generative capabilities are getting very good. I hope it always makes mistakes. That's why I prefer the word mistakes, because that keeps us on our feet and makes us relevant. Right, Rafa, yeah.
So I want to ask about robots and AI. A simple concept I have. We have our robots, we have ChatGPT. Why aren't people already?
Oh, they are. Oh, they are. Oh, they are.
They're already doing it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yes. I was talking to one of my students. He said, Sanjay, can you be my reference? Next thing I know, they raised $70 million on the $450 million pre-money for a company that puts together large language models and robots. Physical reality. He's one of the founders. Yep. Please do. He's not a robot, by the way. He just proved himself.
A few things that I wondered, how much are you talking about things as being plausible rather than probabilistic? Because I felt that with some of the things that you're talking about, it's unprecedented. It was interesting that you were giving references to the past, for example. This is truly possibly a bad economy. And time frame we were looking at, you talked about 80 years, well that's definitely not the idea of exponential. I also think that you've also used this bigger time frame.
Yeah.
So I think things are going to happen quite rapidly, quite quickly. Things like just kind of democracy, the fact that you talked about this idea being exceptional, I talked about distribution, that's actually a very small percentage of the population by definition is exceptional.
I think it's a long, right.
I wonder in terms of trying to create the education system, if that's actually achievable or possible,
Yeah.
given the context that we're in.
Can you repeat your first question? I didn't understand that completely.
But it was more about whether or not what you're talking about is, are you focusing more on what's plausible rather than what's probabilistic?
Yeah.
The first thing. The second bit, think about laws of averages, like statistics, laws of variance, that happened in the past and trying to show.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what's happening is unprecedented. Based on exponential changes that are occurring,
Yeah.
I don't think that things are going in the past.
That's actually, Damien, I agree with you. So let me start with that first, and I'll come back to plausible versus possible or probabilistic. So have you heard of, there are many famous labor economists looking at this. Daron Acemoglu, one of my colleagues, wrote a book about this. He's the guy who wrote Why Nations Fail, very famous big book. And he just wrote a book with another colleague of mine, Simon Johnson, called Power and Progress. Labor economists like David Autor, Daron Acemoglu, others, like to use this ATM example. It's their example, not mine. Damien is actually right. What he's saying is, Sanjay, you use that example from the past, and you're assuming history is going to repeat itself. And so this will create new jobs. Guilty as charged. It's a hope. It's an ambition. Right? I hope it happens. It's called Jevons paradox in economics, which is when productivity goes up, use actually goes up even more and creates more demand. Right? One example of that is when steam engines became more efficient, people thought the amount of coal needed would go down. Actually, it went up because steam engines became more productive. More people use steam engines. The net use of coal went up. It doesn't mean history is going to repeat itself. Damien is exactly right. May not. Another issue is the ATM example took 15 years to play out. AI has not had that courtesy of giving us 15 years to figure stuff out. It's moving very fast. So I want to come back to Giovanni's question on Arvind. Okay, I'll address Jasmine and Arvind's questions. We have to fundamentally and radically change our education systems. This agile continuous education that I mentioned to you, we created it. I was one of the creators along with a MIT professor who's a Bosnian refugee. Professor Admir Masic. He landed at MIT. First person he met in the coffee shop, in the lobby 7, was me. And he said, Sanjay, I grew up a Muslim refugee in Croatia. I made it. I don't want other refugees to go through what I went through. And we created ACE to help refugees because it's an emergency population. And then when we created it, we realized, my God, if it's good there, it could be good for everyone. And that's how ACE was created. Refugees have a crisis, we all have a crisis. And that's what ACE is. So it's a sort of an urgent reaction. In terms of what is plausible or is it probabilistic, this is my judgment. My judgment, after having been a skeptic for 30 years in AI, is I'm looking at it going, wow, okay, wake up, I got to take this seriously, right? The things I'm talking about, always a probability attached to it, but I'm pretty confident that now things are changing. By the way, right now, at this moment, there's a jobs crisis. In India, for example, the Indian Institutes of Technology, where I went, it is unheard of for IIT graduates not to get jobs. Unheard of. There are thousands this year, thousands, still looking for jobs. And it may have had an impact on the elections. This is real. This is happening right now. Now let me come to the questions that Jasmine and Arvind asked. What is your perspective on AI? Do you have an instinct or intuition for survival. I better go. I have to go to the airport. That's a scary thought, isn't it? When AI says my survival is more important than yours, right? And Geoffrey Hinton, one of those heroes, one of those papers was his that I referred to, quit Google saying, this is real, I'm terrified, right? He was at the University of Toronto, then he went to Google, and now he's giving a bunch of interviews saying, I'm really concerned about that. So these are existential questions as well. I don't think it's there yet. AI does not have consciousness, as far as we know. In fact, we don't even know what consciousness is, right? There's a paper yesterday or day before saying that maybe lower animals also have consciousness, and we're still talking about it, right? When Deep Blue beat Gary Kasparov at chess or won Jeopardy, everyone celebrated except Deep Blue because they had no idea what it means to win, right? And doesn't know what it means to celebrate. So I don't think we have conscious, but you know, we're sort of exploring some squirmy questions. And then finally, does AI have consciousness in general? Are there future implications? I don't know. I'm a researcher. I know. We'll figure it out. I don't know.
Sorry.
Right?
Can I have one question?
Yeah.
When we look on developed countries or developing countries, it's predicted 60% of new jobs on AI will take place. Are these countries are prepared in terms of talent? The complexity of it.
You know, the good news for the developing countries is they don't have that many knowledge jobs. More jobs are blue collar than white collar.
No, because it's connected world.
Yeah.
It's a
But
connected
hopefully,
world we cannot run away from.
maybe we'll all become farmers, right? So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, these are big questions. I actually think that Malaysia has to give this a lot of thought because Malaysia is in a labor market crisis right now because a lot of people are going to the gig economy.
Second is that there will come to the world where zero workforce of humans, and then there'll be a social economy in terms of income.
Yeah.
And the third one will be do possible that technology will be dominant by huge players.
Yes,
Then
yes.
these small companies all obsolete.
So it could be that Google, Amazon, Anthropic, you know, Microsoft, OpenAI rule the world. We're ruled by 5 corporations. Good news is it's getting open sourced. And so there are not a lot of open source models. That may be our future, is open source models. Also, they consume a lot of energy. I think we'll have small language models, which run on your phones. So there's lots of progress. I'm not that worried about. We should keep an eye on it. And in terms of your other question, there's a concept of something called universal basic income, which is you give people, it's like a socialist thing. You just give people income because the jobs redistribution isn't going to happen. You'll have the last question, ma'am.
I continue the question on the hallucination part, which when ChatGPT, when we first launched, right, I did a math questions to the board. And it happens to come up with a question that different from my answer. And it challenged my brain as if I'm wrong. So I threw the question to a lot of people that it seems like I'm right. So by the question I want to address is two. The first thing is, what's the risk that you're looking at if people were to fully rely on this and are picking it as an answer without digesting? And the second thing is, what's the next approach for ASB when it comes to education part?
Yeah. Look, on the first question, you're already, this is a crutch, and you get too used to a crutch, you forget to walk, right? It's already happened to us. When you use Google Maps and we use Waze, you give yourself an excuse, which is, oh, I'm looking for traffic. But actually, you don't want to think about directions. So you've really already compromised your sense of directions with Google Maps. And that's just Google Maps, right? So this runs the risk of fundamentally changing how we perceive the world and how much it becomes a crutch, right? In terms of learning, existential moment. If you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, you're someone who cares, something about those 86 billion neurons causes us to do things that AI cannot do. For God's sake, let's focus on that, right? So it's a pretty existential question. Look, forgive me, I have to go to the airport, but it's great to see you all. Most important, be transformed, participate in the transformation, help shape the future. Otherwise, we're going to run a very risky, going to go through a very risky period in the next 5 years because everything's coming together at the same time. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. It's a very enlightening talk this morning. Unfortunately, Sanjay doesn't have a clone and a board yet, so he has to physically fly to Jakarta. Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay. For the next segment, we're going to talk about our programs we run here, our Masters in Business Administration as well as Executive MBA program. I know there are some alum there in the room with us. You can sit through, just like, oh, I didn't know I did that in my program. Or you could correct me if I oversell. Yeah. For those of you who are new to ASB, if you look at, some of them have got very interesting name tags that has got additional information. So Damien, for example, is joining us in the class of 25. Yeah, he'll be joining us in fall this year. George, as Professor Sanjay has identified just now, it's our recent graduate. And Mr. Soon, that is making his exit now, he's a very proud parent of a recent graduate as well. Yeah. Now, it was a very interesting talk that Sanjay has shared, and I will really, really get frightened if AI starts learning from TikTok videos and bots start doing TikTok challenges. For the benefit of those who are joining us online as well as on YouTube Live, I'm just going to play a short video of our school. Yeah, this is actually a drone shot. Again, technology. For those who are here physically in the campus, I'm sure you don't have the opportunity to go out on the rooftop, so do enjoy the video with me. Right. For those who are in the room, of course, you're very familiar with Malaysia. You're here in Malaysia. But for those who are joining us online, just very, very brief introduction about Malaysia. It is a country, I would say, of melting pot culture. It is multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious. And it is also a very hospitable country. In fact, for those who have the privilege of joining us in person this morning, we'll be inviting you to lunch. And yes, I'm aware that I'm standing between you and lunch. Right? For those who are joining us online, too bad. Right? We wish we could virtually serve you lunch, but we shall look forward to host you on campus one day. Now, our program, just let me talk about our MBA program as well as executive MBA program briefly. It mirrors very closely to the program, to the MBA program being offered at Sloan, except that we actually accelerate it into a 12-month intensive program. We've taken out many of the vacation days, right? So this is a 12-month program, mirrors very closely to MIT, but what we do very differently is that I would actually venture to say that this is an even better program in the sense that you have the Western perspective that is brought by the MIT professors, right? They would bring the Western theories and the frameworks, introduce them to our students, but we also have the Asian perspective, the Asian context that our resident faculty would provide. And also our action learning program, I would say it's an action learning program on steroids. Yeah, I would go deeper into talking about them individually. Now, talking about professors, so up to 45% of the course is taught by senior faculty coming in from Sloan. They will fly into Kuala Lumpur, deliver the classes. Our students also have the opportunity to go up to MIT in March. Yeah? In March, you would go to MIT, you have 3 weeks of immersion at MIT, taking classes with MIT professors. So it all adds up to about 45% of your coursework. Some of them are actually professors that are in demand, right? One of the advantage of being in the ESV MBA program is that because we have exclusive access to the professors' time, since we fly them here, you do have that direct access to them. Professor Bruno, for example, is a master negotiator. He negotiates on behalf of countries at the WTO level, and his waiting list at MIT is 3 years. So you may not even get onto his course if you were in a Sloan MBA program. So I'm just going to talk about the MBA program very briefly, and then I'll hand over the time to my colleague, Juliana, or Jules as we like to call her, to talk about the executive MBA program. Yeah. So every year we have one cohort for the full-time MBA program. You come in the fall, right? You join us in the last week of August for orientation. Classes proper will start in September, all the way through to the next August when you graduate. Now, during that process, you would actually go through the academic learning, but the other half of the learning actually comes in the form of action learning. I'll explain more about action learning. Now, action learning is where you get to apply what you learn, whatever theoretical knowledge in the classroom, out in the field, right? Industry track is when the students will get to go to various markets. In some years, it could be, say, Seoul, right, where they get to meet policymakers, thought leaders, innovation leaders, business leaders, to hear from them firsthand what are some of the trends that they're looking out for. What are some of the developments that are keeping them up at night? What are some of the exciting behind-the-door projects that they're working on, right? In a recent one, our students were in Seoul. They visited a steel mill. They visited the Samsung Innovation Center, right? And it was all closed door, right? Because it was with the executive VP of Samsung at Samsung Innovation Center, looking at what's going to be in the market next 5 to 10 years down the road. And so that level of access is only made possible through the program. Now with the business practicum, that's where I'd like to say, it is truly, truly unique to our DNA, right? Now in most business schools, students would sit through a class, reading business cases, debating about business cases, some of which are, I don't know, written 30, 40 years ago, hardly relevant, right? However, through the business practicum, our students get to live through the case. During the week, you'll be brought to a company. In the daytime, you will be distributed among the different departments and business units of the company. In the evening, you come back and share with your class, right? What are some of the observations that you see happening during the day? And together with a professor, with a business coach, you put together a presentation for the management of the company at the end of the week. Now that level of access, again, the entire class embedding yourself into a company, again, I don't see it done in many other places, right? You don't just read a case, you live through a case. And I would like to venture to suggest that you get to write the case. Because whatever suggestions, right, our students have made to the management of these companies, often they get adopted and implemented. So our students play a part in impacting. Our students play a part in becoming the transformative leaders for these companies. Yeah. And of course, our students will be engaging in consulting projects. The action learning projects is where you go as consulting teams of 3 to 5, taking on real problems that some of these companies, some of these corporate partners that we have, they do have a list of projects they would love our students to be working on in a 4-week engagement. And it's very much like a Tinder process, right? Our full-time MBA students will have a list of problems that the corporate partners have shared, and they will pick, okay, I'd love to work on this is a pricing strategy challenge. Okay, I'd like to take that on. So you swipe, was it left or right on that project? But a company would also look at the makeup of the consulting team and says, do they have the requisite skills that I would like to have working on this particular challenge? So it is a matching process, yeah. And of course, at the tail end of it all, you'll be engaging in your 6 to 10 weeks of internship. But internship we take really seriously here because there are internships and there are internships. There are internships where people just go and make photocopies and buy coffee. But we want to make sure that when our students are on internship, they get to apply whatever theoretical knowledge that they have learned in the classroom, they have the opportunity to apply it through their internship. So it solidifies whatever knowledge they've learned in the classroom. Of course, I speak too much, and I'm just going to hand over the time to my colleague, Jules, to talk about the Executive MBA program. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the Executive MBA has a lot of the same features as the full-time MBA, but the key difference in it is you can keep your job and work while you do the program. So let's see. There we go. Okay. So the full-time program you complete in 12 months, but it's super intense, and it's impossible to keep a job. So for the Executive MBA program, we've extended it to 18 months, so it takes you 4 semesters instead of 3. You take approximately 3 weeks out of work each semester. Not all at once, don't worry. So you come in for the orientation, that's actually 2 weeks, but then you'll come back later in the semester for a 1-week period, and you'll take an intensive class. In the meanwhile, on the weekends, you sort of be an every other weekend thing, where you'll come in and take classes, okay? So you'll take your core classes, a lot of the quantitative classes that require a lot of thought time, those will be based on the weekends. And some of the other classes that are fun, like marketing, that might have less numbers but have very conceptual bound, these will be during the intensive weeks, okay? And the intensive weeks tend to be your MIT faculty, or they're the business practicum that Winston was mentioning, okay? So for the Executive MBA program, I cannot pull you out of work for 4 weeks to do an action learning product. But we want you to have the same experience.
So instead, you'll do 2 business practicums. The first business practicum will be in Malaysia. It'll look very similar to what the full-timers do. The second one will be overseas, and again, an intensive 1 week, okay? So since the full-timers go overseas for their action learning, we want to give you that global exposure, but we just can't pull you out of work for as long. And then also we have professional development. In the full-time program, there's a lot of focus on how to help you find your job because you are job hunting. In the working professional program, we know that you already have a job. You're still working with your employer. But we want you to have lifelong professional development skills. We want you to know how to get promoted internally. And we want to work with you in that process, so that's why we have professional development, okay? And if you are paying your own way through the Executive MBA program, the Career Center is open for you for job hunting, okay? But before you get too excited, usually when you've got 8 years plus experience, you find your jobs through networking, okay? And they'll help you open doors. We have the optional industry trek, which I highly hope that all of you will take part of and do. It's a very worthwhile experience. And then, of course, we've got some executive coaching to help you through. But the real thing to take away from here is when you graduate, when you receive your degree in hand, it's identical to the full-time program. They are both MBAs. And that's important because the executive format is more about catering to working professionals with 8 years experience. But it's the format that you choose. The degree is the same in both programs, okay? So with that, I'll hand it back to Winston. Thank you so much.
Roy, if I could use, thank you. Yeah, I do realize that I kind of skipped over some important slides. So yeah, this is it. Now, early on, we talked about the fact that this is a very young school. We were founded in 2015, just past 8 years old. But I guess the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? If you can see, this is the list of the employers that have employed our recent graduates. I can see Mr. Soon taking down notes. We could share some of that slides with you, not to worry. Yeah, and you will see some very familiar names among the employers here. In fact, I'm very, very proud of the efforts that our colleagues from CDO, as Jules mentioned, Career Development Office, that they have put in. Now, in a full-time MBA cohort every year, maximum we would take in would be 50, maximum 50 every year. And in a class of 50, you would have 3 career officers that look after you. So that's a very high ratio. And also, thanks to the effort, as well as the effort of our students, right? They hustle hard together. You can see among this list, for those who are familiar with professional services, management consulting, McKinsey is one of the top 3, right? McKinsey, Bain, BCG. And every single batch of graduates, with the exception of the year 2020, and we all know what happened that year, right? Every single batch of graduate, McKinsey has hired at least one from a cohort. So that speaks volume about the caliber that they recognize among our students. Of course, again, I need to come back to the fact that we don't just take in students who are extraordinary, but we're taking in students who are ordinary that are ready to be transformed to become extraordinary. Yeah. That's the transformative education we want to give you so that you can go on to become transformative leaders that will change, transform, and enhance companies. And our cohort is actually, on average, about 60 to 70% international. So far, 59 different countries and regions represented so far, and we're still counting. Yeah. Okay, so we mentioned that there's collaboration with MIT. You know that you get MIT professors teaching you. You go to MIT for immersion. But some of you may say, okay, how much more, could I get out of the MIT experience? Now, if you when you graduate from our MBA program, you actually be inducted as an affiliate alum of MIT, of Sloan, rather. So you get your own email address that's like winston@sloan.mit.edu. There's assigned to you that you can use for life. So that, for some people, is a great bragging right. I'm sending you an email from sloan.mit.edu instead from gmail.com, right? That's one. But you are also part of the MIT Alumni Network. You get invited to MIT alumni events. So that is, you don't just get one network from ASB, you get two networks that you can tap into. Of course, there are those who says that, yeah, but I want a full MIT experience. I'd love to go be a full-time student at MIT. It is possible. Okay. So let me skip over the slide and talk about this program. So at Sloan, there is a very special program called the Master of Science in Management Studies. It's a 9-month all-elective program. And they only take in graduates from 10 different partner schools around the world, right? We're talking about partner schools like INSEAD, partner schools like HEC Paris, Imperial College Business School, Tsinghua in China, here in Malaysia, Asia School of Business. So you can't apply to this program directly. You need to go through one of these 10 partner schools. And when you join this program, it's all elective. You can take literally any elective across all of MIT and across all of Harvard because of the exchange treaty between the two different schools. So it is a great opportunity to learn at two of the top universities in the US. And for those who have picked a third of your electives in data analytics related courses, then it earns a STEM designation, which opens up a 3-year OPT, allowing you to work in the US. Now, given the current climate where it's so difficult to get an H-1B, and looking at the politics in the US, it looks like Trump is coming back in the office, then the OPT is a very, very precious pathway. Because even during his last administration, Trump couldn't make OPT go away. Now, for those of you who are entrepreneurial, you're thinking about starting something, we do have a very, very exciting incubator on campus. It's called the ASB Hive. They run series of open mic sessions and workshops, and they bring the startup community here on campus, right? So as part of our advisors, as you know, that Malaysia is now is going into this new phase of growth where we're inviting a lot of venture funds and also trying to create an ecosystem that boosts the first Malaysian unicorn. Although I would say Malaysia already has a unicorn. It's called Grab, just that it took on funding down south. I won't mention that country. Yeah. So we're hoping to create our own Malaysian unicorn, and we're hoping that ASB Hive could be the home of the next Malaysian unicorn. Okay, and for those who are interested in research, there are 4 research centers here at ASB, even though we're a very small school, being founded by Central Bank of Malaysia. Naturally, Central Bank Research is one of those centers, but there are 3 other very interesting research centers as well. For example, ASEAN Research Center, they have received a grant from the Korean government to study the CSR efforts around Southeast Asia. In CTSS, that's where we looked at what are the technology that is helping, that's making contribution towards sustainable efforts. And Professor Assad's center, CSS, the Center for Small Farm Owners, Center for Sustainable Small Farm Owners, is what I feel really exemplifies what we talk about being a principal, showing principal leadership. So that center looks at what are some of the best practices among that's being adopted at the bigger farming conglomerates, and what are some of these sustainable practices that they can introduce to small farm owners, and they work with 5,000 beneficiaries down in Johor State. Yeah, so that's something that I think, as someone in the school, I'm really, really proud of our contribution towards nation building. Of course, elephant in the room, how much? The full-time program is 150,000 ringgit. It's payable in 3 installments. So each tranche is due right before each semester starts. The full-time program, the part-time executive MBA program will be 180,000 ringgit. Yeah. And for those who are not living here in KL and are not living in Malaysia, I'd like to highlight the fact that KL is actually, KL for short, but Kuala Lumpur, capital of Malaysia, is actually one of the few capital cities in the world where it's still pretty much a renter's market. So it is possible to access affordable rent here in Kuala Lumpur. If you want to live on campus, campus housing is available. It's literally 2 minutes walk from the academic building. It has a full gym. It has, it comes with kitchenette. But if you feel that, but I love to swim, I want to get a place that has a pool, there are plenty of options here around the campus that's within 10, 15 minutes, grab right away. Yeah. Okay. I guess with that, I'm just going to end. I'm just looking at 3 minutes past. Do we have questions in the room? Yes, please. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking the question. For those of you who would like to ask questions, you could make use of the mic. This is part of the interesting technology that we have here. Once you press on that button, it pops up, it turns green, and then people on Zoom can hear you. So the gentleman's question is, do you need to exercise your option to go to MIT right away? So the good news is that you don't have to. You have up to 5 years to exercise that option. Because sometimes after your full year MBA program, you want to take a breather, you want to take a break from studying, or you just want to help your wallet recover, right? Work for a bit, save up before you go to the US. So you have up to 5 years to exercise that option. Yeah.
How does the OPT work?
How does the OPT work? Yeah, so the OPT pretty much means that you have work rights in the US, right? And depending on the program, STEM programs actually attracts up to 3 years. Yeah, so you do have that 3 years work right in the US.
Does that cover just the rights to work in the States, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So-called a work permit, and what about employment, and does ASB provide that kind of facilitation to look for a job in the States?
Right. Okay, so I'd like to clarify that is indeed true that the OPT is a work right, so you have the right to stay in the US and work in the US. With that, it makes you employable in the US. Okay. Secondly, the Sloan program, it's a Sloan program. Yeah. So in that sense, the career support would be from Sloan. But that said, here at ASB, given the fact that we have a very strong team of career officers, we also do not guarantee job placement. Right? I would like to clarify here is that we do career enablement. We do not do career placement. I know people coming from certain parts of the world, they do, in certain countries, they do have a very, I would say, established practice of the moment you enter into a particular into business school, your job placement is pretty much guaranteed, but we don't practice it here. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Go ahead.
Sorry, Winston, another question, right? We kind of understand the whole program, but what I really want to get a gauge of is basically in terms of connectivity and networking opportunities, not just within the school, but also with other companies. Is that enabled? Is there any events throughout the year that happens?
Okay, that's a great question, actually. So there are multiple opportunities where our students would be exposed to corporates, right? So let's talk about the academic program. So throughout the academic program, some professors may invite their contacts within the industry to come in as guest speakers. So that's one touch point, right? Within the action learning program, as I introduced earlier on, right, industry track is an opportunity for you to be connected with the business community in the particular market that we visit. That's one touch point. When you go to the business practicum, that's with one particular company. When you're doing your action learning project, that's with your client company. And then, of course, when you do the final leg action learning summer project, it's the internship component. And I do see Jules wanting to take over that question.
So I was also going to say, too, throughout the program for networking, you do have a lot of opportunities. We're often running conferences here. The student clubs bring in a lot of companies for you to network with, and also IEC brings in a lot as well. So it's significant, the volume that comes through here.
Yeah, so I mean, on top of that, right, there is also the career track that our career development office would organize. They would bring the students to cities like Singapore, like, I said that word, but city like Singapore, like Dubai, like Hong Kong, where our graduates may attract a higher remuneration package as well. And each of these tracks is a week long, and during that week they get to meet 20 to 40 different employers. Yeah. And as Jules mentioned, right, there's always something happening on campus because of the strategic location of where we are. For those who are not familiar where we are, joining us online, we are actually right in the heart of the city, behind the central bank. So the strategic location and the attractive facilities that we have means that a lot of events are actually held here. Literally, in every week, I would say there is easily one or two events that's happening. So the challenge really is, how do you balance full-time studies and attending these events while you still have to rush out your assignments and have to meet up your project group? So time management is actually one of the most important skills that we want our students to develop.
Can I just follow up to that question? So in terms of the degree and ASB just as a whole, its influence, its transparency in just Southeast Asia, right? Do you, I understand, we're going to, we have all this industry track, the business practicum, we do have the I would say international exposure. So, like you mentioned earlier, when you like going to Singapore for all these networking events, has the previous batch actually had like a positive impact in the sense that whether it could be just landing a job, or it's just the sense that they have like the transparency that ASB is producing high-level quality graduates.
Yeah, so I think your question is about whether the market is aware that we produce high caliber candidates, and so I would like to highlight the fact that when we were looking at this list of employers, it is not just here in Malaysia. It's actually on a global basis. So we don't just talk about McKinsey Malaysia, but rather McKinsey Hong Kong, McKinsey Taiwan, McKinsey Singapore, for example, right? Google was out of the Singapore office, and Agoda is in the Thailand office. Now, the program is actually designed to be a global program, right? So when our students come in, the diversity of the class gives you that global exposure. The network that you form is on a global basis. In fact, it's our, well, not mandate, but it's our aim to try to bring representatives from each and every continent into the classroom, with the exception of Antarctica, of course. Yeah. So that one we can't produce. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. And we're talking about whether any of these has positive outcome. Yes. So we do have alums that are working in different continents of the world, except for Antarctica. Yeah.
Good enough. I've also seen that there are a couple of scholarships as well. Can you share a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, so in a full-time program, there are 2 scholarships that have been, thanks to the generosity of Public Bank Berhad as well as the YTL Foundation, right? So we're able to fund 2 local Malaysian citizen students with a full tuition waiver. Of course, if you want to qualify, if you want to present yourself as a candidate for that scholarship, you do need to apply really early in the cycle. So you have to apply in the round 1. So round 1 opens in early September, closes end October every year. This year, there has been, the board has also been feeling extra generous. They have again granted similarly 200% tuition waiver. We don't call them scholarship, but fellowship for two international students. But again, you know, the decision has been made for the intake that's coming in September this year. That said, for those of you who feel that your candidature is highly dependent on financial aid, then number 1, apply early for the next cycle. Number 2, it's that there are, for those who are based here in Malaysia, there are also different avenues available, such as Affin Bank, which I believe offers a very, very attractive, is it called iEducation or e-education? I think it's called iEducation loan support. Yeah.
I have one more question. Is there any GMAT and TOEFL score required?
Yeah. So we don't require the GMAT or GRE. We do evaluate our candidates holistically. However, it is strongly encouraged. The reason being, although we don't need it, if you were to exercise the option to go to Sloan, you would need that score. Secondly, many of the financial institutions as well as professional services firm, they still look at it as a certain benchmark. Yeah, so it's good to have those scores. Especially if, let's say, you had too much fun during college, you don't have a fantastic GPA, having a good standardized test score would help with your candidature. I think I do have to stop here, right, so that we can move on to the next segment. So for those who have not visited the school before, we have arranged for you to go on a campus tour. For those who have, and they say, okay, I'm not going to look at it again, please feel free to stay back and have a chat, and get your questions. Lunch will be served at 11:30, I believe. Yeah. Right. Again, thank you everyone for being here this morning. And thank you for everyone who's joining us online. I do hope I have an opportunity to host you on campus one day. Thank you all. Check. Yeah, for those who are going on the campus tour, please follow my colleague Ramli. He would lead you